The Department of Defense is now officially the Department of War. Really appropriately renamed, I think. We all know that it wasn't about defense at all, but it's certainly about war. I do want to point out that they're having to change. Some people are saying, what does it matter? But they do have to change all the signs everywhere. So, by the way, that costs money. Just something to think about for those of you who are supposed fiscal Republicans. This is going to cost a lot of money, changing out all the signs on every base, on every printout, on every pamphlet, on everything, every uniform. I mean, everything. They have to change the name on everything, and that is not going to be cheap. So I'm curious what the cost is. But here's Donald Trump signing the executive order.
Thank you, and it's an honor to sign this. And we will do that right now. I think that's a big one, I'll be honest. That's a big one.
That's a big one. Pete Hegseth, now the Secretary of War, no longer the Secretary of Defense. Why did they do this? I don't know. Here's their hype video that they put out here. Let's watch.
We won World War I, and we won World War II. Not with the Department of Defense, but with a War Department.
We're focusing our military on its core mission, crushing America's adversaries.
We're in the business of war fighting.
Well, at least we're honest now. The Department of War, yeah. Why was it ever changed to the Department of Defense in the first place? It really shouldn't have been, in all honesty. It has been the Department of War since the dawn of time, 150 years it was the Department of War. Then after World War II, they changed it to the Department of Defense because they thought Department of War just sounds kind of aggressive. And, Americans don't really like that. Americans want to be viewing themselves as spreading peace and prosperity and being defenders of democracy. So they changed the name to the Department of Defense, but it's never been about defense. It's been about war. So I suppose we might as well just be honest about it and call it what it is, totally the Department of War. And maybe with it being called the Department of War and it starts being used in that way over and over and over again, maybe Americans will be more hesitant about waging war. I don't know. Maybe we'll start to say, hey, wait a minute, we don't want all this war waging. But here's Donald Trump. He says, no, forget you about that war. We're going to wage war. Not only are we going to wage war everywhere, we're now going to wage war in America against Americans. I mean, that's what he's saying right here. He says, I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War. Oh, okay. So we're going to wage war in American cities. Now, look, I am all for getting rid of all the violence. Do what we need to do there is a lot of violence going on in some of our cities. We've got to do something about that. Certainly, illegal immigration. We've had a problem with that. Obviously, there's something that has to be done. I'm all for that, but to actually say that you're going to be using the Department of War against Chicago, where else? I mean, what? I just am trying to make sense of this. I'm just trying to make sense of this because this is what we all thought we were getting, right? We all thought we were going to get the party of peace, the pro-peace ticket. This is what Donald Trump saying he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. And yet he goes around and decides that he's going to change the Department of Defense to the Department of War. He's going to blow up boats of 11 people that may or may not be drug smugglers. There's a lot of debate on that, on the boat that he blew up off the shore of Venezuela, whether or not they were drug smugglers. I mean, some will point out that, look, the boat was too small to be going all the way from Venezuela to the United States. Or why would it have 11 people on it and not more drugs, fewer people? I mean, that's what you'd think you would have if you were drug smuggling. Not to mention the fact that a lot of the drugs are actually coming in through Mexico, not through Venezuela. And the charge against the drugs coming in, the fentanyl coming in through Mexico, is that they're using Chinese-sourced materials in order to make the fentanyl in Mexico, which is then coming in through the cartels in Mexico. I mean, we're just getting a lot of conflicting stories, and it's causing a lot of us to just say, look, we're all down for you getting rid of crime in cities. We're down for you getting rid of illegal immigration, especially the violent criminals that are in the country that shouldn't be here, or even if they're allowed to, even if they're here on visas and they're violent, get rid of them. Fine. We're all for a lot of these policies. I think the issue is that they've just gone a step further than what we thought, right? We're all for what we thought was, cleaning up these things, but why change the Department of Defense to the Department of War? That's just flexing. And now you're going to cost us millions of dollars, maybe even billions of dollars in signage changes just so that you can flex. And this war hype video that they made saying that, now the world is going to be afraid of us. The world's not afraid. You can't get a single deal done when it comes to peace. What's going on with Russia and Ukraine? Putin's flipping you off, Trump. And this is the problem. This is why he's doing this. I think he's doing this because Putin's effectively flipping him off, saying, well, you know what, you don't have any real power anymore. China's saying, yeah, you don't have any real power. India has now been seen, Modi is out rubbing elbows with Putin and Xi Jinping. And Donald Trump is even posting about it, saying, oh, look at these guys getting together. Well, yeah, you should be afraid of that. The fact that all of these world powers are getting together and not with us. And so our response is like the schoolroom bully that is just going to take your lunch money. That seems to be our response to this, is just go harder on the whole bullying thing. Just, we're the Department of War now. We're all about war. We're going to get you. We're going to blow up boats of people. And we're even going to wage war on our own cities. We're so tough. I just don't know what to think of this. I don't know. I'm willing to... The name change is stupid. Let's just all agree on that, because there's really no need for it. It's just posturing. There's no policy to this that's actually going to be beneficial at all. We don't need to have it's almost a little bit too much. It's like giving yourself the trophy and saying, I'm the best. Or why don't you just prove it? If you're the best, then prove it. The silence actually says more. And the actions and just being the best. If you have to actually declare yourself the best, you're probably not the best. And that's the thing about the Department of War. If you have to actually declare we're the Department of War and you're doing it to scare everybody around the world, then clearly we're suddenly no longer scary. And we feel like we have to declare it in order to be scary, rather than just maintaining the Department of Defense. If we were truly scary, we wouldn't need to even change a single name. In fact, we could sit back and say, yeah, it's the Department of Peace now. And everybody would still be frightened of us because they'd know that it's a bunch of bullshit. It's not about peace at all, that we're holding on to these nukes and we're not afraid to use them. But instead, if you have to say it, you lose your power in that. It's almost comical. So we're almost a laughing stock by changing it, to be honest. And you've got all these other world powers getting together saying, we don't really care what you think anymore. We have now coalesced. China and Russia and India together have way more nukes than we do. Russia has more nukes than we do on their own. Then you combine them all. And now we've got, what are we doing? So then we go around, we're the Department of War. That's what, we're warmongers. We will wage war, even in Chicago. This is just insane. I feel like we've lost the plot, and we've lost really sight of, I just don't know what we're doing here. And then when it comes to, we're so warmongery that we don't really care about, we don't give a shit, says J.D. Vance, about war crimes. That's how, which obviously our country is funding a genocide right now, and we don't seem to care. We're talking about basically wiping Palestinians off the map, literally, and letting Israel take Gaza, letting Israel take the West Bank, which we'll get into a little bit later, of course. And literally would be wiping Palestine off the map and not caring. And so here, we don't care. So I guess it's, again, I'm appreciating the honesty. So here's J.D. Vance responding about the boat that they blew up. This was out without due process. We cannot be this country that without due process blows up a boat of 11 people. Not knowing, where's the proof that these were drug smugglers? Where's the proof? You can't just target somebody and say, I think you're dealing. Imagine, there were a lot of people that wanted to do this, by the way, wanted to blow up weed dealers. Now marijuana is practically legal everywhere in this country. But there was a time when a lot of people just would have rather shot the weed dealers. So put that into perspective, because that absolutely is a thing. People were locked up for many years for selling weed that is now perfectly legal and people are making millions of dollars doing. So here's JD, and I'm not saying like, oh, these cartel members are fine and we're going to let drugs into the country. I'm saying that the instinct to want to just kill people because they're doing something you don't like is an instinct that you have to mitigate because you could be fundamentally wrong on that. And even if what they're doing is wrong, we're never going to, legalize whatever, fentanyl, which I don't think we should do, of course. But nonetheless, even if we, to give the death penalty without due process to somebody who's dealing drugs, is that really just the accusation? It's not even that it is somebody dealing drugs and we're giving them the death penalty. This is just an accusation against somebody and we're deciding to basically execute them. Is that the direction we really want to take society? Because if they'll start it on the Venezuelan boat, but they'll bring it home to America and they'll say, it'll end up like the Philippines under my brain, starts with a D, Durante, my brain right now. Sorry, I have sick brain. But it was basically killing people for dealing drugs. And we don't do that in this country. We don't agree that drug dealers get the death penalty. We actually find it quite shocking. There's actually a big news story that's been going around about a young British girl. She's about 23 years old. She was in Qatar. She was in Dubai, or in United Arab Emirates. She was in Dubai, and she got caught with a bit of cocaine. And now she's going to be serving 25 years in a Dubai prison for having a little bit of cocaine on her. She's a law student from the UK. And this is making the rounds as, wow, this is insane. And of course, you know how they're framing it? They're framing it like, look at these crazy Muslims. I mean, these crazy Muslims are so insane that they would actually lock up a young girl who's going to law school over just a little bit of cocaine. And here we are blowing up boats of drug dealers, and we're like shocked that the Muslims are putting her in jail. I mean, at least they're putting her in jail and not executing her point blank, saying, well, this is how we deal with people in our society. I mean, we decided to just point blank execute these people. And yet we're calling the Muslims, radicals and extremists and insane people. So just the hypocrisy there. But let me just go back to this. J.D. Vance saying, he doesn't really give a shit about these people being blown up. So he says killing cartel members who poison our fellow citizens is the highest and best use of our military. Right. That's, I watched these movies. What was that movie with Claire Danes back when I was in high school? And she got caught. She was like a drug mule, and the guy put the drugs in her backpack, and she didn't know, the cute guy put the drugs in her backpack, and she ends up having to go to jail for life. And she, that movie that scared the living daylights out of every single one of us, and thinking we don't want to go to one of these really super strict countries that'll lock you away forever, or even Dubai, after this article that came out today. So here he is, acting no different. Well, worse, we'll just kill you. We'll just execute you. We're acting like Saudi Arabia now. We're going to execute you. Actually, I don't even know. Do they execute? I mean, I'm saying that, and I don't even know if Saudi Arabia actually executes people over this. They probably don't. But here we do. We certainly do. And Brian Cranston, whether you like the guy or not, doesn't matter. He said, I actually kind of like the Cranston. I don't agree with him on a lot of stuff, but I find them to be fair. I like that they will listen to a lot of different opinions. And there's some of the only liberals out there that will, and you got to hand it to the liberals that will. And they are certainly those liberals. And he says, killing the citizens of another nation who are civilians without any due process is called a war crime. And he's actually right on that. That is actually called a war crime. And J.D. Vance says, I don't give a shit what you call it. Oh, so that's where we're at now. I thought we were going to be the country of law and order. I mean, that's what I thought. And Rand Paul thought so too. So Rand Paul says, JD, I don't give a shit. Vance says killing people he accuses of a crime is the highest and best use of the military. Did he ever read To Kill a Mockingbird? Did he ever wonder what might happen if the accused were immediately executed without trial or representation? What a despicable and thoughtless sentiment it is to glorify killing someone without a trial. Right. That is true. Rand Paul, once again, standing up for truth and ethics and morality in this country, standing up for true American values, which is we don't believe in this sort of dictatorship insanity where you just execute people you accuse without even providing evidence. And not only that, but if you did provide evidence of them being drug dealers, do we execute drug dealers? We don't actually. We don't actually execute drug dealers. But now apparently we do. And so that is now going to be the new norm. And if you think it stops with Venezuelans, you're kidding yourself. And that is why we have to we have to shine a light on these things and say, this is wrong. This is against American values. We don't believe in this. We do believe in doing it the way we've been doing it all along, which is if the boat makes it to our shore, then they get captured and they go to jail. And that's what we do with them. Now, if we want to harshen the penalties, then we do that using the appropriate mechanisms to get that done. We don't just blow them to smithereens without due process. What if we were wrong? How many people on that boat were not? I mean, to think that a small boat had 11 people on it and it was going to be taking drugs to the United States doesn't even make sense. I mean, you'd have fewer people and they'd have to have more resources on the boat to make it that far. They'd have way more drugs on the boat and way fewer people on the boat. I mean, why would you even do that? Where was that boat going? Even then, just capture the boat, and then take the people and put them in jail, or, put them in jail for life. You want to give them a life sentence for that, but you have to have a trial and you have to have evidence. I mean, that's what we should believe as a free democracy, but apparently we're not that. So, I don't know. I mean, here we are now. We're the Department of War. We're waging war against not only Venezuelan drug dealers, not only are we waging war against everybody apparently in the world by trying to mean mug and say, we're the Department of War. I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious. Do you give a shit? Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.